tutti.
Good morning, everybody. This is my colleague and myself. Welcome in Bicocca. We have cooperated with this project on the impact assessment, and we're very happy to meet today and see each other in person, because these 2 years have been held online, and all of the faces were on the screen of a computer in a small screen, in a small picture. So finally, welcome in Milan, and we really hope that you will have a wonderful time. You will feel welcomed for this last mile. It has been a very hard job to work at this project, especially during the pandemic. A very proud and ambitious project, notwithstanding the great difficulties. I believe that we have been able to achieve a great result, and we are extremely happy to present the results today here at the Bicocca University, so that we can then move on and continue to work and contribute to this project that has been able to work up today. So together with Mrs. Nicolotti, who has really offered her great contribution to the project. Welcome today, and let me leave the floor to our guests who are going to present the projects. Thank you, and have a fruitful day's work. Good morning. My name is Maria Luisa Bicocca, and I am part of the project who have worked to the Marte project. Welcome on our behalf. The institutional greetings and then the presentation of the European projects will take place at around 8:45, and then we will have all our psychologists and therapists. So to give the floor to our institutional greetings, I would like to give the floor to Lamberto Bertolè, Councillor for Welfare and Healthcare of the municipality of Milan. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this invitation. I'm truly happy of being here, not only because of the topic that you have dealt with, but also because we had the chance of sharing together reflection on important projects like this one. Every time we meet, after we have covered a pathway together, and we have to assess the worth of that project, we should not feel compelled to say that everything went well. And so, as a representative of welfare and healthcare of the municipality, we want to understand with serenity and transparency and honesty what has worked and what has not worked. What has not worked is important as successful results, because, you know, in the world of welfare and social work that needs a push forward, we, you know, tend to think, oh, everything went well, and we do not understand what has to be changed so as to achieve a virtuous system that can enter the system of welfare. And so we have to be very honest in saying what has worked and correct what has not worked, so as not to start from scratch every time. So that the virtuous cycle can be copied and developed further, and avoid new projects to start from scratch, instead of focusing on a positive experience. Sometimes we run the risk of starting from scratch and forgetting about other projects. So we really have to network those things that have worked. If we tend to be extremely conservative and not focus on the main stream of projects, we are losing precious time. So today we are here to understanding the positive effects and results of the efforts that have been put in place, but please let's also focus on the failures, because the fact that an experimental project has not achieved all of its goals is also positive. We have to say, let's welcome failures. So in this case, it's not true, but we need to understand all the important aspects. So having said that, let's go to the specific core of the project. As a Milan municipality, in the last few years, we have been highly committed in the protection of fragile people, vulnerable people, those who are mainly struck by these problems. So we really need to put in place strategies that allow us to arrive before and arrive better to the finish line. So we have to be ready to allow institutional communication to be streamlined and work well, and present preventative programs so as to be promptly on practice instead of running after solutions. So we are looking for the best and most appropriate solutions for what needs to be approached. You see, there have been many changes in these last few years, and responses have to be different and diverse, and we need to have a plurality of tools to respond to these problems. And so if we have a multidisciplinary approach, we can understand which pathway is the best. So we need to train all those people who are on the territory, those practitioners, train them, and then put these pathways in place. We are really willing, we're here to listen to you, to understand what you've learned, what are the messages to take home, knowing that we have to understand what are the great phenomena that are underway. And so while waiting for this final presentation of Marte's project with Mr. Sbaraini, we were thinking of all of these problems that are not approached, i.e. non-accompanied minors, more than 15,000, and there are at least 10% of these arriving to our city, a very high figure. And so we needed to think of responding to their primary needs, so a shelter, a home, abilities to live in a place where they can be educated and grow, and support them, so allow them to be introduced to schools, and this is a very high number, more than 1,200 in Milan, and it's difficult for us, but anyhow we're dealing with that. But to be very, very careful in treating these children and supporting them, because they have been undergoing trauma, harassment, and so we need to respond to these needs. So there are emergencies that we have to tackle, and this means that if we focus on emergencies, we stop facing those pathways that need to be ongoing. So we support them in going to school, in arriving, but we do not understand the trauma that they have undergone. They have been abandoned, they have been traveling alone, they have been submitted to abuse and violence during the travel because of adults. So to manage investment so as to treat these problems in the best possible way is extremely important, especially with such authoritative partners. Thank you also for the presence of the Garante dell'Adolescenza e dell'Infanzia, the Protector for Childhood and Adolescence. And we really are very, very happy to listen to your experience. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bertollet. So let's invite Gilberto Sbaraini, President of the cooperative La Strada. Good morning, everybody. Many thanks for your presence here. Especially, I would like to thank the people who have worked on hand practically on this project. It has been a great opportunity for all of us because I believe that those who work on a daily basis on these topics need also to focus and ponder and reflect on what they are doing and how they are doing. So it has been a great opportunity also for our La Strada Center. I would like to underpin an aspect that I consider personally very important. The title of our project recalls the aspect of traumas that deserve everybody's attention, So personally, I believe that it is extremely important for us to be particularly attentive to these common experiences that become extremely heavy to carry for some. They deserve our attention. Yes, deserve, because, their human experience is challenged, and our human experience is also challenged in supporting these people that are in a humane, difficult condition. So we run the risk of setting up services that are without emotions and feelings. But today, I believe that we will find not only technical tools, but also to understand that this desire of compassion, to feel passion and compassion to the life of people, is going to be the engine, the driver for our profession and our job. As engines in cars require fuel, we also need some fuel and some attention. So I really hope today that all of you, all of us, will find this compassion. Thank you. Have a fruitful day's work. Many thanks, Mr. Sbaraini. Now I would like to give the floor to Riccardo Bettiga for childhood and adolescence protection in Lombardy. So I don't like institutional greetings, but I would like to say something that is extremely important for what Mr. Bertollet just said, that it does not need to focus so much on today's work, but support non-accompanied minors. 400 applications have arrived for voluntary tutors, and we have had all professions participate, but no psychologists or therapists. In this last 5 or 6, 7 years of voluntary protection is missing. So we need to work culturally on those communities that could support us on traumas. So this is just a small bracket that I open and close. So we are really looking for these positions, for these skilled professionals. So after having said that, the counselor also said something else. We need to network all this. So I am the regional protector for childhood and also participate to the observatory of families. I'm not specifically devoted on harassment, but I also wanted to focus on wonderful aspects that I have seen. Experiences, practical local experiences with an international support that have a method, that have an impact assessment. The culture on this topic, i.e. training on social practitioners. The day before yesterday, on Friday, I also participated to an important meeting, and I work at the region Lombardy, and I am the interface of the ministry. And so our message does not always arrive up to the ministry. I believe that we have a good scaffolding, this is a joke. The law on the healthcare is wonderful, but then when you put it in practice, it crumbles. So the scaffolding is okay at national level. There are beautiful experiences, but there in the middle, and there are not many exemplary cases that can become an example that lawmakers can follow. So this is why we need professionals and that can work in this direction. So given that I am an interface and I receive the information from the scientific community and have to give it back to the institutional bodies. So I see that there is a lacking brick on social harassment and traumas. We really need a different storytelling on traumas and harassment, so that they become a building block of the society, because lawmakers do not focus their attention on excellence but on the legal structure. So in terms of the professionals and the practitioners, I believe that a great effort is that of working on the culture of themes linked to traumas and professionals and practitioners. Because you see, if we do not focus on all of the important topics, not only unaccompanied minors, we need to network and be very, very focused. So I know that my greetings have not been particularly specific in terms of an institutional body, but we are highly undervalued. We receive 700, 1,000 indication of intervention, and these are important observatories, but nonetheless it's difficult to analyze them and understand the data we receive. But I will not focus on this problem, because the problem of data is something that is useless to underpin. Everybody highlights this. But for me, it's extremely important to be here today as the guarantor and as the interface from the institutions. So I'm really, really happy to be here today and learn from you all. Thank you very much. Many thanks, Mr. Bettica, and let's close with Mrs. Gloriana Rangone. She is the CISMA Lombardy referral person of the CTA. Center for Adolescents. Many thanks for this invitation. Good morning. I'm honored to greet you on behalf of CISO, of Region Lombardy. I do not want to steal valuable time with my reflections, but just let me highlight in the latest report of the World Health Organization that focuses on all the countries that have participated, and also Italy, that see that the main situations of violence to children and adolescents are alarming data. And even the national survey that has been conducted in Italy that dates back to 2018 confirms that we are seeing data that are extremely relevant in their alarms. And this is a submerged phenomenon. What does this mean? It means that the data do not reflect reality. Reality is far worse vis-à-vis what they reflect. Therefore, we really need to start working hard. I really believe it is indispensable to strengthen awareness programs, education training programs devoted also to minors, not only to adults. Of course, those are necessary, those to adults, but also those offered to minors are important. In many situations, for example, there are reports to the police thanks to the group of peers, of friends, not the children in kindergarten, of course, but adolescents, for example, teenagers. There are situations that are reported thanks to these systems of peers. So we need to devote attention to minors. And of course, attention to adults who talk to minors and adolescents. And let me underline that there are some professionals, some practitioners who stand out because they do not report. Alas, this has to be said. It is very important. Think of the first years of life, from 0 to 3 years of age. They are visited by pediatrics, for example, seen by pediatrics. And these professionals could report certain important situations. So if these professionals are not trained, prevention cannot occur. Moreover, programs for the implementation of care, treatment, and recovery of experience of adverse events on victims and make them recover. So we have to inform, train, offer tools, allow people to understand what is occurring, what certain children and adolescents are experiencing. If there is abuse, there is someone who is the perpetrator, someone who is the victim, and someone who is observing that abuse. So we need to offer tools, information, training, and what we see as a CISMA is that it is collaboration that is needed. It is indispensable. Teachers, for example, they have to be trained. They need to detect specific situations of abuse and harassment, but someone has to be siding with them, supporting them. So it's not your problem as a teacher, it is our problem as a society. And so we work together so that these problems can be reported and do something to help these people. If teachers are only given information, they're made aware, but then they are insecure, they are scared, and they do not know what to do. Even if they know that they should report that abuse, they do not know how to behave because they feel left alone. So Chisma, who is very happy to be present here of this project, we are happy to give you our welcome. Thank you.
Really would like to thank Mrs. Dragoni. Also would like to thank the institutional guests for your welcome speeches. The floor goes now to Stefano Calori, PM Progetto Marte, with his pleasures, the job, let's say, he managed the entire project. Buongiorno, good morning everyone. Marilu, thank you. Before introducing or presenting the project, I'd like to thank the delegations, the partners of the Marte project for some welcome speeches. We can start with Greece, then Bulgaria, then Slovenia. Thank you.
Τους φιλικούς χαιρετισμούς από τον Δήμαρχό μας, κύριο Βασιλιτσάκο, και σας εύχομαι καλή συνέχιση στις εργασίες σας.
Yes, Ms. Georgiadis is our president, is the president of WCK.
Sono presidente WCK e è stato...
I don't understand it, that she's transmitting our mayor's greeting and wishes for a very fruitful and interesting meeting together. We will. I'm going to say some words about the Women's Center of Karditsa. So that's for now. Municipality and the mayor is very, very supportive to our work. So we will give you a few more words afterwards, my presentation. Thank you.
Buongiorno a tutti. It's the only thing that I know in Italian, and now I'm going to continue in English. Maybe next time I'm just going to talk a little bit more in Italian. Thank you very much for the invitation from the Bulgarian side. It was really a great challenge to enter that project, and we made a lot, and we learned a lot. But we could not do our job if we have not the support of our associate partners at the face of the regional government and the Russian University. And for that, I would like just to, they sent via us the greetings to the project and to the project team. And if you allow me, I just would like to give to our project manager the two greeting addresses in which the both institutions wish us a success, and thanks a lot because we helped them and their students at the Russian University just to enter a new topic, which is not quite known and quite well developed and presented in Bulgaria. Thank you very much and wish success to the conference. Thank you.
Hi for everybody. I'm Helena Dieter, coming from Slovenia. I'm partner of this project Marte. I'm very grateful for that. So I'm excited for this day. So we see it in the 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, Grazie, grazie a tutti voi.
Thank you so much. We can start the ball rolling. As Marilu said, I am the project manager. My name is Stefano Caloni, and we've had the pleasure to manage this beautiful, interesting, but also complicated project. As Professor Magarin said, we managed the project right in the middle of the pandemic years, and I have to say that was not very easy. I mean, to implement, our activities during the lockdown periods. I'd like to go back to one of the words from Gloriana Rangone, collaboration. Now, I guess that this is the number one value added in the project, which is collaboration. So the methodology we are using is a multi-level methodology. So we want to, let's say, in every single phase of the project, the analysis, the assessments, but also the regional information flows. We just wanted, to involve as many professionals as possible. Lawyers, police forces, social workers, educators, public authorities, managers. We did that because what we think as of today, and by the way, this is the real value added of this project, and probably the European Commission back in 2019 believed in us. And this happened because, from the very start, we wanted not just to inform, but also to train professionals, increasing their level of awareness on deeply underestimated phenomenon in Europe. So we are very happy of the results we have obtained. And, my partners will tell you more about the outputs of the project. The project is based on open collaboration, the so-called local cooperation protocols. Very, let's say, flexible tools, so as to continue with this multidisciplinary method. And I have to say that our project, Marte, was a sort of a startup, so a pioneering effort. Now, what's Marte? It's a project funded by the Rights, Equality and Citizenship Program 2014-2020. As you know, right now we are in the 21-27 program. Now, the Rights, Equality and Citizenship Program, or REC, has included the Daphne program. Daphne 3 was included in REC. Now, in particular, we have faced target number 5 of the program. Preventing and fighting against any form of violence against young people, minors, women, and in general vulnerable groups. As you can see here, the implementation time window was October the 1st of 2020 all the way to the end of September 22. You can see here the total budget around 0.5 billion euros. Now, as for the partnership, we have involved Italy, Slovenia, Greece. We've involved these countries thanks to a sort of an upstream analysis. So we have cooperated with partners, and this analysis gave us a diverse overview of the phenomenon, so how the situation was detected in these countries. Now, the Cooperativa Sociale La Strada is the lead partner. Then we have RS 2.0 for the communication plan and dissemination. And we also have another cooperative from Sulmona, the center from Cadiz, Greece, Dinamica from Bulgaria, and Zavod in Slovenia. Now, the Marte project, as I said before, allows to improve and strengthen the prevention system, identification system of all of those cases of violence. So in this case, we identify, respond to AC cases. We want to improve the skills of professionals, and we want to make services more collaborative and higher skilled, with much more collaboration with a multidisciplinary approach. So, once again, we would like to improve the quality of the assistance systems for ACEs. As for specific objectives, we have three. The first one is to create a joint framework on the features of the ACE, so the symptoms, the root causes, and the consequences of the traumas, with an involvement of professionals considering the entire system. We want to improve the practitioners' skills already working in some of the project's selected areas. As I will tell you later, we have had two training levels. Level number one was training for the operators and the project partners. Then this training has been cascading down, so on the national level, in order to create a so-called multiplying effect of the knowledge and the skills acquired. The last objective is the promotion of cooperation, as well as a multidisciplinary and holistic approach. So we have 5 work packages. We have this vertical project together with project number 5, dissemination and communication activities, because unlike the other activities, we've implemented them for 2 years. Then you can see, work package number 2, and then the number 3, and the work package, so the WP, impact and multiplier effect. Now, this is the work breakdown structure of the project. Of course, I'm not going to walk you through every single, square. But you can see that the most important work packages were and still are WP2, 3, and 4. In the WP2, we've taken into account the state-of-the-art of ACEs in the 4 partnering countries. We've taken into account the gaps and then what is missing in terms of training skills, as well as the awareness level. So this is the general overview of the situation in those countries. These are the outcomes that we have used to calibrate the training systems that, of course, we had to put together, also in terms of training material. WP3, in this case, Dynamica has offered training to professionals of partnering organizations. We have developed a training material. We have tested it to make sure it could work or not, meeting the needs and the requirements during the assessment phase. So WP2. Then we have implemented a training session. So this is a WP4. Now that was really challenging because in this case we have created the outputs of the projects. We have pilot activities, the T41, T42. So every regional organization had to put together 2 training sessions, thus involving a large number of professionals. Then we've, let's say, taken into account and implemented the fresh knowledge and the new skills acquired for the first beneficiaries of the project. In this case, once again, we have ACEs. Then we focused on the training activities thanks to the international mutual learning. Then we produced the 2 main outputs of the project. The tangible practical guidelines on ACEs, detection and treatment, as well as local operative protocols, so LOPs, that we have signed with different cities and municipalities. Now, municipalities are associated partners. let's say that in a way they supported us in disseminating the results. And this is really important because, well, these are, public bodies. And, we also have to, disseminate internationally all of the activities and the main results that we managed to get. In terms of the main results produced, I'd like to dwell onto the WP3 and WP4. As for the WP3, we made a training toolkit. It's a training manual that you can download from the project's website. We have involved as many as 85 practitioners involved in the capacity building sessions. WP4 is the practical guidelines for the detection and the treatment of ACE. 394 professionals were involved in the downstream or cascade trainings. 27 children involved in pilot activities, and last but not least, the so-called local operational cooperation protocols, LOCP, locally, so in the 4 countries. These outputs have been taken into account in terms of dissemination or communication campaign, so that of course the outcomes can reach many different audiences not directly involved in the project. Now, this is a list of useful links if you want to get some extra info on the project. We have, of course, our website. This is the Twitter profile, LinkedIn profile, and a YouTube page. Now, this presentation will be uploaded on our website. So in the project.marte.eu website, you can find all of the info, the activities carried out. You can download outputs either in Italian or in English, so you can get all the information you want. This is it, and let me now give the floor to the partners. Now, partners will tell us about the situation on this phenomenon in their countries, and Project Marte hopefully can improve the situation in their local context. Let's start from Bulgaria, followed by Slovenia and Greece. Thank you.
Can you start the presentation? Okay. Yes, you can go on the next slide, please. Oh, okay. Oh, this one.
You next.
Oh, okay. First, again, thanks for being here. And yes, for sure. Once again, thanks for being here. And I'm really glad that I see so many young people in the hall, because the topic is important, especially for the young people. They should have the awareness about the issue. First, before starting what we have done in Bulgaria, please allow me just in brief to present the Bulgarian partner, the Center Dynamica Association. I'm together with the CEO of the organization, Ms. Diana Dimova. She is over there. And in brief, who are the Center Dynamica? Center Dynamica is an NGO which is situated in the city of Ruse and in the northern part of Bulgaria. And the activity of the organization is mainly focusing and working on the gender-based violence and multiple discrimination since 2004. At the same time, the organization is a member of quite a different kind of networks and business and associations, like National Children's Network, also the Regional Council of Social Inclusion of People with Disabilities, and Regional Commission of Human Resources, Employment and Social Assistance. What is the mission of the organization? Please allow me just to read it, because it's an important issue, the mission of one organization. Center Dynamica Association is to provide psychological support, legal advice, and counseling of vulnerable groups from the community In order to achieve equality, the association aims at healthcare development, people in bad social circumstances, and disabled people support and assistance. We provide many social services, two of them a crisis center and center for social rehabilitation and integration for children. The target group includes women and men, children and families. As I told you before, that this project could not be such a success in Bulgaria if we could not have the support of our associate partners in the face of the district administration, RUSE, and RUSE University. And we are very glad to have with us Ms. Ani Popova, who is professor in that university and helped us a lot doing all the activities with the students. What we did in Bulgaria, surely we started with the needs assessment because just checking the literature, it shows that the topic is quite unknown. No one is speaking about trauma in childhood, and no one is taking care about that. Surely we started with the legislation. Bulgaria has ratified core international human rights conventions, but unfortunately not many steps are made after that ratification. Since 1991, Bulgaria has made significant progress in ensuring compliance of its legal and policy frameworks to protect children from violence and abuse. After the adoption of the Child Protection Act in 2000, Bulgaria developed the national child protection system in keeping with international standards and practices. But still, ACE is directly connected with the situation of violence against children, and this type of violence continues to be a serious problem in Bulgaria. Still, there are no reliable national population-based prevalence studies of that topic in Bulgaria. Many forms of this trauma are not recognized by experts, shown very concretely in the interviews and the meetings we had with them. Despite a lack of data, data that exists reveal that violence against children is a major problem in Bulgaria, and that there is a tolerance for the use still of the corporal punishment on children in the society. In addition, professionals have limited knowledge and ability to recognize the signs and the symptoms of violence against children. Thus, registered incidents are mostly severe form of violence. As a result, most of these incidents go unreported and undocumented in Bulgaria, resulting in a very low prosecution and conviction rates for perpetrators of violence against children. Limited public awareness to the long-term impact of violence also hampers national strategies to end this type of violence. Children protection system also shows a lot of deficits, and many of them have been reported in the interviews. Lack of social services and frontline service providers and justice officials with specialized training on violence against children, and working with children who witnessed or are victims of violence. Lack of integrated multi-sectoral approaches and responses, scarcity of resources, both financial and human. And another great deficit became evident during this NEET analysis, the lack of mental health activities and many of the consequences pointed by the experts types of mental disorders, an issue that became quite important after the COVID-19 lockdown. Maybe many of you have heard what has happened recently in Bulgaria. There's a lot of contradiction against a lot of the activities and a lot of things done in supporting and fighting against the violence. And one of the results is that ratification of the so-called Istanbul Convention was refused. And even the Bulgarian Constitutional Court ruled that this kind of convention is inconsistent with the Bulgarian constitution, which blocked even the draft national strategy for child for this period, 1930. But that doesn't make the case so worse. We still have some mechanisms to defend that. And one of these is the existence mechanism since 2010, the so-called National Referendum Mechanism, which is on both national level and on a regional level, including a representative for different kinds of institutions. You can see it, a lot of ministries, Ombudsman, the National Association of Municipalities. And maybe the situation in Bulgaria looks like very, very bad, but it's not so. And there's still a lot of done, but I really think that it was a project on the right time to do it. 42 individuals took part in the qualitative study, and some general conclusions. The topic of children's rights is quite sensitive, and preparing these interviews, we received a lot of refusals from the experts to participate in that interview. As you can see, mainly of the experts who took part in the interviews were females. I would like not to say anything about that, but I really think that we need more males in discussing these issues. You see a lot of different kinds of target audiences. Okay, and working with children, we work with 30 children. You see some pictures, and what they pointed as their specific needs. It was seek for attention, emotional worth and care, and the various fears of reviolence, darkness, and ghosts of abundance. And main resilience skills, they pointed support by an elder, family member, or an expert, sense of humor, and self-irony, good school environment. Then the next activity done in Bulgaria were the cascade trainings. What was our approach this time? We decided to go outside the big cities. We decided just to enter and to meet experts in small municipalities because they're not so frequently participated in trainings and in discussions. We met 170 people from different kinds of institutions in the small municipalities. Surely thanks our colleagues for TIAMO for the good trainings they made us, and we just use this as a base to develop our trainings, especially, and we just enrich them with some more information about the national regulation and a case from the practice of Dynamica Center, which was just a point for a discussion. At the trainings with the students at the university, we have a little bit different approach because we think that the young people should have different kind of extra information, and we just recommended them some special books, some special online trainings, and really a great film about the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, Wisdom of Trauma. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it to do that. It's really a film on the topic. You can find it on this link, free, and there are subtitles in different kinds of languages. And about the info days, the activity we finished the project, we made them in that period, May 12, May 12, it was the info day at the university, and where we met people and students and professors in a hybrid event. You see 192, 98, and main speakers were me and Diana Dimova, but we also invited some speakers from the outside. We invited speakers with the practice, which even make the meeting more practical. And what we asked the students before was to look the film and to have questions and just suggestions what they would like to discuss on the info day. And some interesting topics came. We also included, there's a good questionnaire of World Health Organization about the adverse childhood experiences, which is made frequently. And we showed with them and discussed the result of the latest one done in Bulgaria. The students also expressed interest as what is happening in the Bulgarian prisons. Are there any programs working with young people there? And we met some guys from the administration just to show what is done in the Bulgarian prisons. Surely we spoke a little bit more about Kitsugi as an art of sustainability. Luckily, at the same time, there was book which came in Bulgarian about Kitsugi from a French psychologist, and it was good just to recommend it to the students. And one question which is very important recently in Bulgaria is the situation with the migrants from Ukraine. And many of these migrants are mothers with children, and no one is paid special attention to work with children. And we just rely on the recommendation of UNESCO how to work with children who witnessed war. And I think that was quite a practical and a good added information. And we also discussed the recommendation guideline in Bulgarian version. You can see some pictures from the info days at the university and info days with the institutions and NGOs. We organized several info days in the period of May till middle of June with 100 attendees. Participants were mainly employers at the organization who deal with children surviving from different traumas, violence, and acts of abandonment, especially from Rusa region. Many of them have been participating also in the trainings. That makes our task a little bit more difficult and complicated, because we should give them a new information that can be interesting for them. We just presented in front of them what have been done. Meanwhile, we have printed the guidelines, and every one of them received that guidelines and copies of these toolkits. You can see again some pictures from these events, both online and in presence. And we also invited in these events people from the foster care, because we think that the foster care parents also should be sensitive to the issue. And at last, how we finished our project, Ms. Dimova signed a protocol with the regional governor. We've made 13th this year, in which protocol the regional administration just proved that they will be together with us in our next steps, working for the protection of children. Okay, and surely we've make our best to make all our activities and the activities of the project as visible as possible. And this is from me, and this is the contact of Center Dinamica. You can see and read more information on the website. Thank you very much for the attention, and I really hope I wasn't too long. Thank you.
Hello again. I'm psychotherapy specialized for young children and manager of Zavod od Partadlan. Zavod is an NGO organization. Now I'll give you a brief picture of the situation in Slovenia and what are the expectations after the Marte project is in our country. Adverse childhood experience are the relatively new concept in Slovenia. The term is not commonly recognized in Slovenia. It only started to gain in recognition in 2019, mostly thanks to the study of ACE carried out by Faculty of Social Science and the National Institute of Public Health, which was first of this kind and until the Marte project, also the only one. Based on the statistic and the researcher, around 55% of children reported emotional and 43% physical violence of adult household member against them, which are alarming numbers. Now we'd like also to point out the professionals that are awaited after the Marte project. I already mentioned the study of ACE in 2019. One of the researchers is also with us today, Professor Dr. Metka Kuhar, who has also helped us with implementation of the Info Day in University. And we hope this is just the beginning of our cooperation in highlighting the issue and the rising public awareness about ACE. During the interviews with practitioners, another issue was pointed out, There is much more of this than we are aware of. There is a lot of hidden violence that remains between the four walls of home and does not reach the institution. So the Marte project was more than welcome in Slovenia, also because the participants of the study expressed a lack of knowledge of ACE and lack of necessary training in their field of profession. Conducting interviews and implementation of cascade training were a bit of challenge due to COVID situation, but with guidance of the leading partners, we are managed to carry out everything with a very positive feedback from the participants. Slovenia Bar Association, who offered us support with cascade training for lawyers, invited us to participate in a seminar related to children, trauma, in general mental health of minors, organized by the Bar Association in the future to raise awareness of the problem and educate especially family lawyers. Sigmund Freud University, that support us during the cascade training and info days, expressed interest of future cooperation in the field of advanced childhood experience based on Marte model. Kick meeting is scheduled in the late September. We were invited to present Project Marte next week in the final event of the Youth Center project, Slišim, where the researchers support mechanism for youth workers when working with young people in need. And we are also very proud to announce that municipality Zagorje ob Savi, who was also a signatory of cooperation protocol, agreed to co-found the implementation of psychosocial support for the minors based on Marte model. There will be the Youth Center Zagorje ob Savi, an organization established by the municipality to coordinate activities related to minors, and Zavod Odprta Dlan will be the sole executor of the program. The pilot program will run from October to December 2022, with the possibility of extension after evaluation. The program will include individual psychosocial support for children and adolescents, seminars for profiles that work with children, and group workshop for children. We are very excited about new collaboration to the future spread awareness of the issues and finding of the Marte project. I'd like to thank to Larisa Vodeb, Metka Kuhar, and Zoran Stankic to support me after this project. Thank you.
With this one, Stefano? Okay. This one, okay. Hi again. I'm Katie Velesciotou. I'm the director of Women's Center of Karditsa, which is a non-profit organization, a municipal organization. It looks like this. It's a front facade from the building. You will see it when some of you will come to Greece. So, WCK is a non-profit, as I said, municipal organization established in 1992. It's the oldest women's supporting center in Greece, and the only one in Greece that belongs to the local authorities, the municipality of Karditsa. It is also one out of the 64 structures which consist the network that the General Secretariat for Gender Equality created to support the women victims of gender-based violence. Our main concern is the continuous operation of a network of people, executives, and organizations in local, regional, and transnational level in order to provide the best and more efficient services to the women of the prefecture of Karditsa. And our vision is that men and women can have equal rights and responsibilities in terms of work, family, politics, authority, leisure time in a world without gender-based violence. But WCK operates these 4 departments: Department to support women in matters of employment or internship, Department to support women survivors or victims of gender-based violence, children's and 2 structures for children's. One for preschool aged children in the evenings, and one nursery for children from 2 months to 2.5 years old, but also implements national, regional, local, and European projects aiming at promoting equal opportunities, fighting against discrimination and inequality in working environments, abolishing professional segregation, combining professional and family life, informing and activating citizens in matters of social inequality against women, sensitizing them against violence against women, teenagers, children, and other people, and spreading practices for the implementation of all above. This is the reason we are here now. No, sorry, this one. To speak the last one for the project, have a good aspect, because I will run all the slides quickly, because some of them already have been told. It aimed the Marte project to tackle this phenomenon. How? By improving the quality of support provided by the practitioners to minors who suffer from ACEs. In which way? Through tailored capacity building, standardized in new protocols and procedures. How we did implement it in Greece. First of all, a preliminary needs assessment based on analysis of the existing bibliography and national statistics regarding the ACS took place from professionals and children who had experienced ACEs. To gather quantitative and qualitative data on their perceptions. Professionals working in healthcare system, educators, social workers, lawyers, filled in an online questionnaire, and we have implemented semi-structured interviews. 40 interviews with the aim of exploring in depth some of the areas already examined in the quantitative research with a more specific focus on their experience. And children who have experienced ACEs, 15 children aged from 8 to 12 years old, 11 boys and 4 girls. We had a discussion between child and the therapist based on a semi-completed story in a familiar and safe environment. Children were using their personal experience to complete the story, the semi-structure I told you before, declaring with their voice what they really need. What were the aspects from their literature review? In Greece, there is not a sufficient number of surveys for children who have experienced this phenomenon. Researchers will draw indirect conclusions, mainly based on data on domestic violence, statistics on child abuse neglect published by NGOs or helplines or public services, and experts from doctoral dissertation and conference presentation. The sub-categorization is absent from the statistical data. Under the umbrella of children at risk, problems of physical, sexual, psychological abuse, behavioral problems, etc., are incorporated. The Institute of Child Health emphasizes that are not national statistics on the ACS, such as abuse or neglect in a dysfunctional family or in Greece, there is no official and systematic collection of data, as it is not mandatory to report and record cases of child abuse and neglect. NGO The Smile of the Child operates this national helpline and the European line without reporting specific data for this phenomenon. According to Ms. Theoni Koufonikoulakou, who is the Greek Deputy Ombudswoman for children's rights, children's abuse undermines social cohesion in total. Some qualitative data. According to the Greek professionals, ACS are very common in our country, appear to have a long-term impact, especially on an individual level. More than 1 to 3 answered that they have not been directly or indirectly involved in any case of this phenomenon. The majority of them included in the ACE's phenomenon all forms of child abuse, and the majority of them stated that they did not have sufficient training in how to distinguish or handle these cases, these forms. Qualitative data from children's interviews, some of them. All have experienced ACEs. The majority of them live with their mother. All showed interest. They could watch the flow of the story. There was an eye contact with the psychologist, but also some difficulty in expressing emotions verbally. The most common emotion of the children, an emotion mentioned by all, is sadness. Fear, shame, anxiety are also mentioned. They really want their voice to be heard. They put themselves in a calm and safe environment where there will be no fights and conflicts. Training. In order to create a common theoretical and operational framework to reduce the operational gap between diverse categories of practitioners working with children victims of traumas. Some interesting notes. Trainees were psychologists, lawyers, educators, social workers, speech therapists, doctors. We have implemented a detailed approach to types of ACEs, detection, assessment, and therapeutic framework, which was very well presented. Genogramma was accepted as a very useful tool to illuminate the ACE traumas. There is a need of disciplinary scientific group cooperation and interconnection of the organizations. There is need of data, surveys, and recording of the ACEs cases. Cascade training activities to disseminate the principles and tools of training. We have implemented 4 trainings with 97 participants who were working in community centers of the municipalities, the Directorate of Social Services of the municipality, were self-employed, were working in local medical center, hospital of Karditsa, and education. They were divided, if we would like to divide them by category, were 24 social workers, 5 doctors, 14 health professionals, 24 teachers and childhood educators, and 30 other. Points that emerged were the importance of the training of the professionals on the correct methods for the detection and treatment of the ACEs. The issue of ACEs have not been focused on prevention. The cooperation among professionals, organizations and institutions to minimize the stigmatization mechanism. The importance of raising awareness and training of the professionals working with children from early age. The need to raise awareness of the general public and of specific special groups such as migrants, refugees, about this phenomenon. Some qualitative data involving children. Lockdown and the general resistance made it impossible to gain access to children living in therapeutic communities. The sample of the children interviewed in Karditsa were living with a protective parent, usually with their mother. They were in a therapeutic relationship with a psychologist, and other practitioners were also supporting the family. Through the activities of the project, we discovered that the feeling and lead to the recognition of this. By talking and describing the situation of the activities, they understand their own way of reacting. From the reactions, they are gradually led to the expression of their feelings. I see, I feel, I externalize verbally and physically. The activities contributed to the emergence of the emotions and the recognition and description of emotions. Professionals' opinions about the activities. As children are confused towards emotion, activities contribute to becoming more descriptive, to recognize ways of non-verbal communication. They act as a booster in building trust between the therapist and the child and allow him or her to know the basic emotional knowledge that the children have. Professionals, through the activities, strengthened their skills and abilities, were engaged in new methods of approaching emotions of the children. About the info days now, we've implemented one at the University of Thessaly in Karditsa and two other four institutions in which attending representatives of institutions, NGOs, municipality, counseling centers and shelters, policemen and policewomen, members of the Greek parliament, teachers, etc. Main presenters were Dr. Siomos Konstantinos, who is famous in the area child and adolescent psychiatric, and Ms. Theoni Koufonikoulakou, who is the Greek deputy ombudswoman for children's rights in Greece, and also the president of these lawyers in European level, Ms. Chandrouki Eleni, who is a lawyer, and of course executives from WCK like Dina Karagiorou and Haido Ioannidou. At these 3 info days, almost 180 persons attended these days. Some points that emerged were the lack of systematic data and epidemiological studies causes multiple difficulties regarding the design of social policies and services of target interventions. We need more targeted dissemination about the ACEs to the wide public. There is the need for to make this phenomenon, this cooperation between the organization institutional, such as the cooperation among the social services, schools, kindergartens, etc. There is need for training and scientific supervision of all the professionals. There is need for introduction of a coherent curriculum for sex education in schools. There is a need to be increased the cooperation among police officers, lawyers, judges, social workers, and health professionals. And there is, of course, the need to continue similar actions. And last was the local operation protocol. WCK and Municipality of Karditsa signed the operational protocol with a duration of 5 years. WCK is committing to contributing its awareness-raising work on the ACEs issue by involving local schools and teachers, contributes to promoting training and information meetings for both its workers and the community aimed at developing a shared culture regarding the recognition and approach of ACEs, oversees the monitoring and verifies the application of the agreement. And the Municipality of Karditsa undertakes to sensitize the operators, in particular these who work at offices of service to the person on this phenomenon, ensures that the collection of preventive reports take place in conditions of respect for confidentiality and in environments suitable for this purpose, favors the participation of each operators in moments of training and upgrading relating to the theme of the phenomenon, and guarantees the ready availability of each operators in order to promptly activate the network of services and planned action. This is some of the points. This is not all the protocol, of course. Summarizing, I could say that in Greece, but also in all the countries, the challenges are similar because of data report, an increase of ACEs, and a serious lack in country policies and legislation exist. There is a lack of systematically collected data, specifically on ACE types and their prevalence. There is a lack of structure that connects the various stakeholders who support children in the country and in regions of the country. There is a lack of a specific focus on early years detection and intervention, and the impact of COVID-19 on children already experiencing ACEs and the need to address possible related trauma. What is next? Our main purpose, which is also in the Article 1, yes, in a minute I'm finishing, of the protocol, is to standardize on the territory the paths of prevention to recognition. So, no, this is next, you can find it because Stefano gave me signs. Okay, thank you. Some photos from all these. These are, thank you very much for your attention.
Well, many thank you to our foreign colleagues for their presentation. And now let's present the outputs of the project. Let me leave the floor to Dr. Maria Luisa Nicotra of the Cooperativa Sociale La Strada. Thank you. So as far as outputs are concerned, the toolkit was extremely important. It was the first output. And we have really worked in the Tiama Center. It is part of the La Strada cooperative, and Tiama has been dealing since 2003 of trauma and its treatment with a lot of enthusiasm. Our colleagues followed the Marte project, and in the definition of the training toolkit, these are the main objectives, those that defined the project, and which saw networking of our guidelines. Mainly, we were guided, in fact, of setting up a shared awareness on ACEs. We wanted to improve the ability of detecting ACEs, and so training many people so as to be able, when dealing with adolescents, so as to be able to understand when these adolescents had to be treated and followed. And another aspect that has guided our work is the need of an integrated approach, a multidisciplinary approach. And in fact, the psychological aspect is important, but it's not the only approach which is needed. We need a therapeutes, educators, psychologists, and this was an important element. More than once, we also gave a subtitle to the training toolkit output, i.e. the possibility of ACEs that cannot be treated by themselves. So children and adolescents cannot treat themselves by themselves. They need support. And more than one operator, more than one practitioner is needed to treat them. A multidisciplinary approach is needed so as to be able to treat trauma adequately and adverse events as well. In terms of content, we had 4 training modules. So one was devoted to the definition of the experience of the phenomenon, the trauma and prevention that Marta highlights. Module 2 focused on the definition of the framework where Marte works, i.e. the European framework linked to the treatment, detection of ACEs, systems of integrated protection and operative good practices. Module 3 focused on detection, so understanding signs, signals at different levels, not only clinically. So for many operators, pediatric physicians, teachers, those who are in contact with children and adolescents. And the last module is treatment and assessment, so understanding the victims, working in contact with them, their family members, their skills, abilities, and their recovery. In putting together the toolkit, and especially in training, in the sessions that we set up, we have seen interesting stimuli because even if we were under lockdown with the COVID and we could not focus in working practically in person. We had to work online, but the enthusiasm of the participants allowed us to exchange opinions and experiences. So what we understood was that we wanted to offer one-to-one training and frontal training, but also that operators, practitioners and professionals could use the tools that we presented, but which could also undergo changes, transformed, and be upgraded to what the different needs of the different countries were. And this is something that we worked on and that our colleagues of the different countries really welcomed. So the training meetings were not just training lessons, but also hands-on exercises, role plays, clinical cases of the TIAM centers, supervision, follow-up that the different partners presented. The main difficulty of the Marte project and of the training toolkit was that of making the greatest number of professionals possible be aware of what the program Marte could offer. And this is it on my part. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie Marilu. E adesso...
Marilu, thank you. Thank you so much. The floor goes now to the president of Nuovi Orizzonti Sociali Cooperative Companies, CEO. She will be talking about local protocols. We are running late, so please shorten your presentations. Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. I'm the CEO of the Nuovi Orizzonti Sociali Cooperative Company. Within the Marte project, we have drafted and disseminated the operating protocols that I will share with you. The first question is, what are local cooperation protocols for with the municipalities in the Marte project? These are tools to share with you the list of actions so that you can hit a target. They are drawn to make sure the performance of our roles is efficient and even consistent. Now, the general purpose is to standardize prevention, identification, take-up, and treating the so-called adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. Implementing the right structures, they will define the key roles and functions. They will foster and make it easier to have the integration between professionals and services to achieve shared targets in terms of detect, protect, take care of children in consideration of the primary interest of the minors involved. The protocols aim at strengthening the public-private cooperation efforts with the main local stakeholders, combating violence against minors, protecting their rights. This tool reduces the local lacks and gaps because we are able to strengthen the cooperation between the various professional categories involved: public managers, police forces, social workers, children educator, healthcare staff. We can do this on an approach which is based on the exclusive needs of the minor. Now, the public authorities, but also the local non-profit organizations have signed these protocols in 4 specific meetings where we talked about how to apply the protocols and the methods to be taken to protect the rights and the health of children. The protocols are based on the most important European but also international conventions and laws that I'd like to share with you. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, approved by the UN at the General Assembly of November the 20th, 1989. The European Charter of the Rights of the Child, approved in 1992, it presents in a complete way the child condition as a vulnerable human being requiring protection and special conditions to grow peacefully and become a balanced adult. The Charter recognizes that on the territory of the community, no child may be subject to discrimination based on nationality, kinship, sexual orientation, ethnic origin, color, sex, language, social origin, religion, belief, state of health, or other circumstances, nor for any of the reasons attributable to their parents. The Lisbon Treaty, signed in 2007, the Charter of Nice, signed in 2000, states the following in Article 24. Children have the right to the protection and care necessary for their well-being. They can freely express their opinion. This is taken into account on the issues that concern them according to their age and maturity. In all acts relating to minors carried out by public authorities or private institutions, the best interests of the minor must be considered fundamental. We have the Council of Europe Convention on the Protection of Children from Sexual Exploitation and Sexual Abuse, the so-called Lanzarote Convention, signed in October 2007, as well as the guidelines of the Council of Europe, Recommendation 10, approved in 2009, together for the 2010 Guidelines for Child-Friendly Justice. A child-friendly judicial system must know how to treat minors with dignity, respect, attention and fairness. It must be accessible, understandable and reliable. It must be a system that listens to minors, takes their point of view seriously, ensuring that the interests of those who cannot express themselves are also protected. So protocols represents a very flexible tool. As a consequence, it is open to new forms of PP, so public-private cooperation. This allows the expansion of subjects engaged in the detection and treatment of ECEs. So, as a consequence, in this context, the role of the public administration is the following. Now, the municipality undertakes to raise the awareness of its operators, especially those working in the offices of personal services on ACE, in terms of recognition, identification and reporting. It ensures that the collection of reports takes place in respect for privacy and in suitable environments for this purpose. It encourages the participation of its operators in training and refresher courses relating to the issues of ACEs. It guarantees the operators' availability in order to quickly activate the network of services and the scheduled interventions. Now, on the other hand, the private organizations, basically non-profit making organizations, will continue to the awareness-raising work about the ACE by involving local schools and teachers. It will promote training and information meetings for both its own workers and the community to develop a culture regarding the identification, but also the approach of the cases of ACE. This is it. I'd like to thank the working group of Nuovi Orizzonti Sociali. Thank you so much for drawing the protocol. 3 key concepts, in my opinion, were listed at the beginning of this meeting that I'd like to draw your attention on. Working on critical points, this is fundamental to solve problems. Passion, mentioned by the president of the cooperative and the collaboration Stefano mentioned. These are the three key concepts, which is, the real foundation of every job, especially our own work, because, we deal with people in trouble. Thank you. Candida, thank you so much. Before giving the floor to Mrs. Giovanelli, I'd like to also show you a video that concerns the protocols. Thank you.
Childhood trauma is a dramatic reality in the EU.
I traumi infantili sono una realtà drammatica nell'Unione Europea. Il risultato di questo fenomeno sottostimato, questo riguarda assolutamente il comportamento anche quando si diventa adulti. Durante la crisi economica e la pandemia il maltrattamento è stato purtroppo nascosto da altre emergenze. Rimane assolutamente un problema serio e ancora troppo pervasivo. In questo contesto abbiamo diversi progetti finanziati dall'Unione Europea per migliorare la qualità del sostegno dai practitioner ai bambini ACE che vivono esperienze negative nella loro infanzia. Si tratta di redigere protocolli operativi con le autorità locali basati su valutazioni. Ogni singolo protocollo promuove una fruttifera collaborazione con diversi enti che si prendono cura dei bambini per sviluppare approcci olistici ed interventi per poter prevenire, riconoscere e comprendere meglio gli ACE. C'è formazione quindi per gli operatori, si attivano reti di servizi, ci si accerta che ci sia raccolta di denunce o comunque di report con il rispetto per la confidenzialità.
Private organizations and associations are committed to continuing awareness-raising work on the adverse childhood experiences by involving local schools and teachers and contribute to promoting training and informational meetings for their workers and the community. Each protocol may be renewed or changed after its experimentation for at least 12 months after the meeting with the signatory bodies. Marte. Some traumas deserve everyone's attention.
The floor goes now to Mrs. Giovanelli from La Strada. This is a social cooperative company. She will give us highlights on some guidelines on the detection and treatment of ACE. Good morning, everyone. I'll be as succinct as possible. Now, these guidelines are based on three types of experiences. First of all, the La Strada's clinical experience. So we have some, outreach services, plus the analysis of the literature. So a national, international bibliographical effort, and then training around the Marte project. So all what we have done, starting from the analysis of the needs. Just 30 seconds on the analysis of needs. Now, it was very interesting to see that every single organization had to adapt to COVID in order to reach the real needs of children and professionals. I think this is one of the main points in terms of putting together, the training, the cascade training sessions, but also in drawing guidelines, taking into account the real actual needs and what we actually can do to meet people's needs. We talked about, lifelong learning, and then respect, the compassion, and respecting people we are working for, which is what we have done in the project. Starting from, let's say, meeting children. The second flexibility is represented by, again, actual real needs. So guidelines. You can see here all of the guidelines thanks to the online tools made available. So we have defined, once again, ACE. So we have a focus on the trauma, the triggers, the post-traumatic functioning, and the brain functioning as well. Then we focused on how services can actively improve their work by putting together different professionals. They can also put together different points of view, different skills, and very tangible, specific aspects, so that you can really see how to identify, all of these aspects, so that we can be as concrete and operating as possible. These are guidelines, so I can't say they are short because this is 50-page long. If you want, you can just see the paragraphs we have highlighted, so that you can really use them, and even your colleagues and professionals can do the same. We need to understand how to integrate all of this in our professions. This is another key point in Marte. This is not just for mental health professionals like many other projects, but we would like to target and raise awareness for a much bigger target. As we said this morning when talking about childhood and adolescence, we have to change the society first, then to change the regulatory framework. We have to train those professionals who meet minors every single day. They can count on useful tools so that we can also work all the way up to the legal framework. There are two more sections, E and F, on prevention. So we have to think of care, detection, but of course we also need basic changes. Everyone can count on tools to facilitate the well-being, helping them feel protected if required. Once again, these are the highlights of our guidelines, which is what you can see here. We want to become familiar in being updated on this phenomenon, no matter what professional category you belong to. The second point, that we would like to be multidisciplinary in terms of points of view and actions. So specific skills from our job, but also putting together a multi-skilled team or asking for help whenever we need it, because of course we are not high skilled for many different aspects. We also have to use validated, appropriate tools, clinically speaking, so we have to know what we are doing so that we don't want to victimize children, because once again these children have been heavily victimized. Within our profession, we need to know how to detect and identify ACE. 1/3 of professionals, you said, never had contact with ACE. This is incredible. I think that everyone, every single professional, we are all the time in contact with ACE, but we need to, identify this. So also in Italy, we have probably the same, underestimate of the phenomenon, and it's difficult to confirm it when we see it. I think it is fundamental, as we said before, to act on many different levels. So professionals, society, but also on children, on minors, by training them, by giving them useful tools and concrete tools as well. Different levels, different professions, different age brackets for us, because, post-traumatic symptoms may be different depending on the age brackets of the minors. We have to identify the size, but also in terms of prevention projects, we have to measure, the actual, age and skills of children. I'm inviting you to be updated, to make our colleague aware by complying with guidelines in every single daily operations and action we carry out. Thank you. Chiara, thank you so much. We have the last speech before breaking for coffee. The floor goes now to Umberto Bettarini. Umberto will be talking about digital communication projects of our system, and these systems have played a fundamental role. Thank you. I'm sorry, I am the last obstacle between you and your coffee. I come from RS 2.0. What we do is the research and institutional communication. We do project management. We also do training courses. So in this project, let's say we are the technical agency in order to carry out the communication part. but also in terms of giving support to research. As Chiara said before, we have created the needs analysis that then has become the fil rouge, so the leitmotif of our activities. So we have built the methodology that led, to the creation of the tools. At the same time, we have analyzed data with La Strada. So La Strada is the, let's say, technical partner in terms of ACE. Now, we need communication, so we were tasked with creating a communication plan, drafting, drawing all the materials, and then ADV, so videos, website, and digital tools in general. So how can we convert the objectives of the project into a communication set of actions? So what's the goal of communication? We need to work on the two sides, improving skills, offering all of the information coming from the project. We also have to promote cooperation. We need networking on the one side, and the need for skills. So some operators didn't know about ACE. So working with professionals to help them, support them, giving them new tools if possible. So collaboration between different institutions, strengthening skills, multidisciplinary approach, which is another key topic. But when you carry out such a project and you can use IT tools to reach a large, wide audience, we should be doing this. So we have to make people aware on ACE or unfavorable experiences. How can we do this? So basically we have two targets, professionals and institutions on the one side, general audience on the other. All of this turns into a multi-channel strategy, so there's plenty of online systems, big investment done on videos. They will be presented in this session after the coffee break. I will show you one video to make sure you understand what I mean, together with the direct marketing, all the direct communication channels, so that if you really want to use guidelines, you need to speak directly with the users of the guidelines to understand their needs. We can also promote, some direct ideas. We have plenty of channels, so social networks, but also institutional marketing campaigns. So this is the logo. You must have seen it 1,000 times already, but in the logo you can see the essence of the project. So we have 5 colored areas. This is the multidisciplinary approach. You can see here the slogan, some traumas deserve everyone's attention. You can see subject matters, disciplines, professions working together, partnering in order to strengthen and enhance skills. This will, help us improve treatments. Look at our creativity. Look at this girl. So there's sort of an absent look. Some traumas generate, a big cut, if you will, in the life of a person, or a trauma. Then we made the website, which is once again the main tool of the project. I'd like to share, a preview with you. So a project hyphen. Now, once again, I haven't described, the contents today. Anyway, just you click on this session, you can download material. As you can see here, you have the guidelines, and then all the videos. So it's a tool that can help you keep disseminating the contents of our work. Okay, I said before that we have created videos. Now, the previous video is the traditional explainer video. So it looks like, scientific communication with some, images, I mean, this is very smart, especially for social networks. This is to explain the operating protocols topic. Now, in the videos have been created with the team taking care of training. So these videos, so once again, we have presented the toolkit with 4 sections. Every section was, let's say, introduced by one of the 4 videos. So there was a visual part, to introduce the content of training. 2 videos, well, there's no voiceover, but there are pictures, there are once again drawings. You can see also the can you see this what this child has done? So worries and well, absence of peace of mind. To understand what this child is basically experiencing. And you can see here this dummy that comes back in the 4 videos.
Insomma, come vedete, un approccio completamente diverso rispetto al video che abbiamo presentato.
Okay, then this is different than the video you've seen before. This means that images, the pictures, can say 1,000 words, so you can see the advantages of communication. We have had a great result on social networks. This is the video of the 3rd session, talking about the role of adults and educators in, once again, resolving, this kind of, maze that you can see in the head of children, okay? So I don't know if we succeeded or not, but we wanted to do something different. Let me share with you our results very quickly. Now, huge numbers, website visitors, more than 13,000. Once again, unique visitors, almost 45,000 page views, with 24 ADV campaigns on the social networks. We haven't spent much money, we have highly targeted this, and you can see here results. So, now, it's a general campaign on the one side, but also targeted campaign, because we've done plenty of direct dissemination activities, direct marketing. Now, by profiling social networks, we've reached 125,000 social workers. So I don't have here all the details, but we do have the details that we will send to the Commission on what types of social workers. Once again, a great result. We have saved a lot of money. So today we have streaming, online streaming as simultaneous translation. It's because we have saved some money for the ADV. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy your coffee.
Rimaniamo nei tempi.
Let's go back to our proceedings. As far as educational credits are concerned, let me remind you that you need to fill in the form, and they are only given to those who are attending in presence. And then, of course, please send back the form of the questionnaire. So these are ECMs for psychologists and social workers. Now let's start with the scientific contribution of the TIAMA colleagues who will focus on their experience on the Marte project. Now we would like to give the floor to Marinella Malacrea. She is a neuropsychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and she is a founding partner of CISMAI and of the TIAMA Center, and she's always linked and connected to us. You have the floor. Good morning. I thought longly on what I was going to focus for this morning presentation. Many things have already been said vis-à-vis the project. So now what should be further work on? And this is my personal opinion. I have been working on this topic for many, many years. I have started many years ago with numerous centers that had different names. Then, of course, was in the TIAMA Center, and I started in 1980, and I've worked also on sexual abuse on minors. More than 40 years have gone by, and every time I have the impression I have to start from scratch, to start over, even if what we've done up to now, a lot has been done by myself and a lot of colleagues, has left no traces. That's what my impression is. You go back to the same places where you had administered training courses, and you see that after 15 years the stuff has been changed and you have to start from scratch. You have contacts with third-party institutions, for example, the judicial context. And every time, here again, you have the impression you have to start from scratch, to start again. And there is no trace left from the work, the years and years of practice that we have performed, and the development of theory and of research. Everything is all gone. And sometimes I do feel discomforted, discouraged. After 40 years of professional experience in this field, I tell to myself, I've worked for 40 years and nothing has changed. Everything is still the same. And some experiences, especially when working with institutions, for example, are highly disappointing. However, let's keep in mind that there's always a reason why, or rather, we can find reasons that are not directly linked to the aspect that, the world is not welcoming this aspect for unknown reasons. And therefore, we are powerless and losers in tackling this world that speaks to us, who says, no, it's not a problem, and whilst we share the opinion that we are not a civil society if we do not focus on these infants, minors, teenagers who have adverse childhood events, traumas. So we really need to look for a reason why it is so difficult to approach this topic and why every time a single person faces these problems in their practice, in the centers, in institutions, in teams that are set up, we always encounter resistance. So we need to accept this inevitable resistance. And we should therefore be resistant in dealing with this topic. We have to keep it in mind when dealing with the unsuccessful pathways that, when trying to help children, are repeated in time, even in the same places, and sometimes also with the same people. So today, now, I would like to show you a very important contribution that I consider absolutely relevant and fundamental, that comes from Judith Herman and her book Trauma and Recovery, from her book in 1982 that has been translated. We don't know, since we cannot find it anymore. It should have been published in 2005, Guarire del Trauma, and that's good news if it's still there, because for some time we had the impression that it was no longer in print. And this book focuses on what happens to the operators and practitioners who work in ACEs. And this is something we need to keep into account, because it explains to us reasons why and situations of difficulties that we meet when we want to focus on this topic. So my first slide is this, the traumatic countertransference. Dr. Herman has a mixed approach, was part of that founding group of Van der Kolk, of Patok. So these are the founding fathers of the attention that we give to trauma. And they proposed, in fact, the theory to which finally even one of the great international groups have accepted, the complex post-traumatic stress disorder. We know that the 5th edition of the DCM has not accepted this diagnostic category, but the 11th manually published in 2018, supported by the WHO, has fully welcomed this diagnostic category, not the acute and well-known post-traumatic stress disorder, but the complex one that comes as a result of the accumulation and summing up of unfavorable traumas of childhood that then deeply impact attachment models, so our main defense and protection models that have a neurobiological basis. And Professor Herman, in her book, has a chapter, Traumatic Transference and Counter-Transference. So the patient in her chapter focuses on how they see and envisage the therapist. And we have to keep this in mind. Our patients see us with the interpretation lens of the trauma that they have undergone. So we are not considered as, their protectors, are those who are going to save them, are those who are going to support them. And this holds true also for foster care centers, families, and members. You always have to keep in mind that the ACE subject is wearing glasses. Through those lenses, they see us differently, and we react to the way in which they look at us. And so we need to focus on that so as to be extremely knowledgeable and go back to Professor Herman's presentation of this problem that we will always need to tackle. Whenever you are in practice, you will see it. I have been working in this field for 40 years, and nonetheless, I never believe that the counter-transference traumas can be given for granted. I'm always involved in focusing on them. So what are the main concepts? Trauma is contagious. So if you are in contact with a traumatized individual, will start behaving as that individual. The same experiences of the traumatized individual that are characterized by the activation or disactivation of our natural defense mechanisms. So from hyperarousal to depression and dissociation invade powerfully even those people who deal with the traumatized individuals. So always keep this in mind. Human beings have this, mechanism of tackling threats. So hyperarousal, vigilance, alarm, agitation, internal intention, need and urgency of action and intervention, and we can also experience it ourselves. And then depression, we are switched off, nothing will ever change, and this does not deserve my commitment. Dissociation, and then those ideas, I have to keep this at bay, I keep that very far from me, and so all those forms of confusion. So these three mechanisms that have to do with defense, which invade the operator when dealing with the traumatized individual who uses these defense mechanisms, are highly presented in this chapter by Professor Herman. And she also writes that traumatic countertransference reactions are inevitable. So no worries, these will occur over and over again. And this last part that Professor Herman highlighted, she says poetically, between a therapeutic and the patient, there is the ghost of the persecutor. So this means that we need to keep into account traumatic events. So we really need to understand that we wanted to build up a perfect world without dealing with the traumatic part of their experience, because this will always endanger the healthy part of the individual if you don't work on it. So we cannot and should not approach an approach that focuses on development without keeping trauma into account. We need to tackle it, to face it, and therefore it is inevitable to be subject to countertransference in terms of trauma, because it is contagious. So what are the effects? Again, I recommend you to read the book, because in detail it goes to describe what can occur. She subdivides it in three main chapters: the effects of the emotional identification with the victim, which is made up of the sense of inability of helping, cue of being and covering the role of the savior, experimenting rage, experiencing deep grief and pain. And this is like, a swing going up and down, so between impotence and need of action, of intervention. effects of the emotional identification with the perpetrator, and you think, no, I will never have to do with this. I'm here working to protect them. How can I be considered the perpetrator? It's not got to do with me. But if you observe closely the details, well, it is quite difficult to claim that it does not have to do with us, because instead it has to do with us quite closely, very closely. Skepticism and minimization, well, that's not trauma at all. No, come on. It's not that aspect that then caused that terrible way in which the victim functions. But is it really true? Is she or he honest? Because then she claimed it, reported it, and then she no longer supported her report. And so again, these ups and downs, disgust and repulsion, contempt. I don't want to deal with it, especially in sexual abuse. Criticism and contempt for the impotence of the victim. Why are you saying this just now? Why did you denounce it or report it 4 years ago? You weren't a child. You weren't 4 years old. You were 12, 14-year-old. Why didn't you say it straight away? And then criticism and contempt for the impotence of the victim is also referring to the inability to protect the victim, because abuse sometimes happens in the family but also out of the family. There are potential helpers, but these helpers were blind, slow, uncertain, ineffective, and were under blocking influences, and so they have not protected, they have not seen or observed. Come on, you're living in 15 square meters and you were not aware, the mother, for example, of what was occurring to her daughter. The desire of giving up, getting rid of the patient. Well, there are people who are more experts than I am. I can refer to someone else who can do better than myself and deal with it. Voyeuristic excitement. This is what Professor Herman claims. I would speak of, sense of cringe, of embarrassment, of looking like, from the hole, from the keyhole, looking at something that is embarrassing, that make you feel and experience negative personal feelings. Effects of the emotional identification with a powerless witness. Guilt of the survivor. The difference between me, operator, and you, victim. There is an abyss. How am I ever going to be able to understand you, to help you out, make you feel that I can really be next to you and close you? Excessive responsibility. Oh my God, now it's up to me. I have to solve this. I am accountable. And so the urgency that was recalled in the previous 2 slides. Guilt of causing grief during treatment. Oh, if we're going to speak about it, she's going to feel grief and pain again without remembering that facts. Normally, these events cause more damage than words. And if words are well balanced, well, they will help you to mitigate the effects of those events, of those traumas. But the idea of opening up, touching it, entering that topic and focusing on it can damage further. And this is something that we often feel as operators and practitioners. Then, all of those problems, subliminal awareness or unawareness, feelings of confusion. But we had talked about it, but what is it that had happened then? So let me give you my personal experience. It has occurred more than once to me that I had to go back and meet and examine children who had now grown up and who had new problems. And since you have a report, I went back to read the written reports that maybe I had written 3 years ago, and I found elements that were not banal details, but that were extremely important that I could no longer remember. And they already said then what had happened, what has caused their trauma. And that was really extremely disturbing. And so I said, well, it's true. The mind tries to segregate and forget these contacts. It's not the fact that I cannot remember these things. It's the mind that wants to forget because it's so traumatic, confusion and inability to focus on the topic. And then this feeling, victim of the patient. You make me feel uneasy. I'm in pain. I want to get rid of this pain. I would like to be more neutral. I would like to suffer less and feel less concern. So you can understand clearly that this is plenty of stuff, a lot of burdens. But Professor Herman, in the last part of her chapter, focuses on the things that we can do. How to manage the traumatic counter transference.
Now, this is something so important for me, and I have a couple of slides to talk about this. The contract or agreement with the patient. You have to be an ally, a partner with the patient. There's a sentence that became a slogan, if you will, that we keep repeating over and over, to our children. I cannot do anything on you or for you. I can do something with you. This is a crucial principle, a basic principle that really defines our position. Our position is not on the other side of the table. It's not, the neutral observer. We don't know how to do things. We just are close to the patient. Professor Herman says that this is a witness offering help. So once again, a real witness, someone looking at you in your face, writing down, understanding what happened to you, now generating pain, and telling you you have good reasons to suffer like this. So the agreement or contract with the patient is based on 5 key words. I have just made a list of what Professor Herman says. Truth is the first point. Now, truth is a problem because it is not just a question of having the patient tell you the truth. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what to do. But of course, you also have to tell the patient the truth. All the truth you know, maybe the patient doesn't know. Speaking to traumatized patients in general, speaking about them, speaking about what we know about them, and then translating all of this into, children language. It is not easy. It is not one of our habits because, quite often we are too vague. We are unspecific. What's happening? I see you are not in the right, mood. But then we don't know the real problem. We are not really able to speak the truth, to tell the truth to children. So, for example, can I tell the truth to a person lying? It's impossible. It has to start from us. The truth thing is not something I want from the victim. It is an obligation. It's a sort of an obligation for us. The second point is cooperation, so being with the patient at the same level. Then safe boundaries. For example, here some things cannot happen, they don't have to happen. So You cannot recreate a post-traumatic, situation while interacting with children. You can't tolerate, they destroy the property, but we have to have safe, boundaries. We have two different sides. They also concern us. They have to be safe boundaries for us. So we have to feel that we are, let's say, working in a space where we can really work. We have to admit limits. This has to be crystal clear. We won't be able to do everything. We are not almighty. We cannot promise children something that will not happen. Sentences like, for example, at the court, people say, speak, then it will go away. Come on, this is not the truth. Speak, speak out, and then everything will disappear. No, this is not true. So there's related, set of, difficulties after the trauma. It is a long pathway made of different steps. We have to be clear, admitting we cannot do anything magical. Then you have to be as flexible as possible, which is what you have to show when it comes to, learning from many different methods, many different theories. Of course, all of this have to be grounded, but once again, this is where we get all the tools we can implement it to help patients. This is a multimodal approach, which is the beating heart of our work with traumatized subjects. This is not enough. You also have to have a therapeutic support system. So Professor Herman thinks that you really have to find it. No one can face or go through the trauma by himself or herself. What can we do? Well, we may look for supervisors. We can look for support with peer groups. And it depends on who our supervisors are and which kind of peer groups we choose. Because, sometimes the people we find in our institutions, sometimes they are not really, let's say, supportive peers. Now, supervising the peer group, well, this means, going back to literature. I think people are not reading enough today. So people are trained in a different way. People don't take the time to read books. I have to say books have been fundamental in my training, but also in the, time spent with them, because I found people, I could, just hear about them. I felt I was very close to some people, everywhere, in the country, so not just in my office, thanks to reading. I really recommend this. Please rediscover this huge asset, which is reading, so that we can really have not only peers, but also, let's say, masters, supervisors. Then, staff splitting problem. This is very interesting. Professor Herman says there was a very united team, then there's a crisis. As if, people were on the two sides of the wall. Wait a second, there's a trauma. So once again, we are taking into account a traumatic situation. It is almost a diagnostic criterion. So once again, don't be shocked by this. Plus, all what Americans are great to do, maybe we are a little bit less great. Pay attention to us, so think of your own needs. Sense of humor means that you don't have to, smile in a silly way for something that has nothing to do with smile. But you don't have to be, shocked by absurd situations. Sometimes you discover that things are so different than what you think or the way things should be going. Together with integrity, you really have to be stubborn. You have to, be as strong as you can in taking into account all of these difficulties. Sometimes our own personal difficulties. So, no shock, but at the same time, we don't have to give up. Okay, then, this is it. Let me now give the floor to the next speakers. Okay, thank you so much. Mrs. Matteo, thank you so much for your speech. The floor goes now to Ulla Sassaro. She's a psychologist, a psychotherapist. Once again, she's one of the founders of the Centro Tiama. I was asked to briefly speak about the well, the makeup, if you will, of the training contents for the Marte project. I am one of the persons who represented the team because almost all the professionals of the Tiama Center has taken part into this work. I mean, putting together the training material. We have cooperated with RS because we wanted, I mean, to create the videos that I will show you. So this is, one of the most innovative and even interesting things that we have been able to build. And we also have, I mean, actually delivered training courses to our friends from Bulgaria, Slovenia, Greece, and the rest of Italy. So I was one of the professionals putting together this project. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Marini Kotra, whom you've met before, together with other colleagues, Sara Ardone, Sara Giovanelli, Tiziana Arella, Giorgia Vasio Perilli, Anna Carla De Simone. Thank you so much. I'd like to say that our coordinator, Francesca Vimpor, so coordinating the Tiama Center, Marinella Malacrea and Dante Ghezzi, I have to say that they followed us from the very top, so they have supported us, and once again, they have been a source of inspiration. I think there's a buzzword that has guided us when creating the training systems, and the word is integration. Well, I think it's an interesting, important word to understand the consequences of the trauma. I also have to say, as a consequence, we need to understand what to do to create a great care or intervention. So why am I choosing the word integration? Well, because after the traumatic experience, there is no longer an integration. The trauma is a sort of an injury, it disconnects and it, let's say, breaks you down into pieces. So the care, the intervention really has to combat what has just happened, promoting, fostering integration. I think that the clinical intervention has to promote integration between the different parts of the self, because the trauma destroys all of these parts. And so we need to promote the integration between the cognitive part, the emotional part, but also the, let's say, the senses, if you will, so the sensory part, and even the somatic area. I have to say that there's plenty of scientific evidence today talking about physiological modifications of our body after a traumatic experience. Now, many papers highlight the somatic consequence of a traumatic experience. The body receives, if you will, the mark, the consequence of the trauma in the neuron networks, but also in the formation or even the configuration, if you will, of our brain. So, as Marinella said before, we need to consider all the new developments of the scientific research. We have to translate all of this in the best practices and useful suggestions to foster the care for our patients. Now, integration also means, if you will, organizing all of the complex work represented by the fact of taking care of traumatized people. Now, in the list of players taking part in the repair system, we also see the word integration. We need many different skills, so we need many professionals sitting around the same table. They should be working in an integrated way. But I didn't know Marinella would speak about the counter transfer, so I'd like to mention it once again, because in a way we also have to be, let's say, integral. So we don't have to disgregate or to fall into pieces, if you will. As once again Marinella said before, we all undergo the consequences of the trauma. So not just the persons living with or working with the person traumatized. So the child, in this case, of course, I'm talking about parents, but also all of us. I mean, operators, when taking care of traumatized children, as Marinella said before, with plenty of interesting details, we are involved, let's say, into the same situation. So even if the trauma has, generated an effect, we have to stay in touch with all the parts of ourselves. We have to keep thinking, so we have to keep our thoughts, let's say, in the on mode. At the same time, we have to be connected with the things we feel inside. So we can really listen to the trauma with all the parts of we are made up of, which is not easy because of the consequences that this produces. So in the training project, apart from the cognitions and these skills, which of course feeds the future direction of our work, we also want to invite those who followed us, please, let's say, also take into account the emotional aspects of listening, for example. Now, this ambition was difficult to carry out. As I said before, these training courses have been delivered in, a virtual modes, which is maybe not really highly integrating. At the same time, we've been able to listen to the traumas, and not just with the cognitive part, but also and especially with our emotional part. Well, in my opinion, we've been able to do this, and this is represented by the videos I'm going to show you. So our wonderful colleagues from Ares, they've been able to translate all of this into a language which is not, the language of the right hemisphere. I mean, they have used images, they have used sounds, they have used the real perfect soundtrack. So we put together our humble knowledge on the one side, and on the other side their art. So they are really able to translate all of this into pictures, images, sounds and emotions. I really would like to introduce the videos, because we really have to listen to them. We have 4 videos, as we said before. They are almost, roughly 90-second long each. And I hope we hit the target. So conveying emotions thanks to beautiful images. Okay, so let's enjoy the videos. Okay, video number 1. So this is what happens to the different parts of the self after traumatic experiences. Okay, we will be talking about emotions and body. Okay, then I would skip the second one because we saw it before. Umberto has shown it to us, and that was the video that represented the need to identify or to recognize the signs that the children sent thanks to their behavior and the possibility to go, if you will, beyond what they can instinctively, raise in some children. I'm really talking about the knowledge of all the mechanisms and the so-called the traumatic reactivations. So this means that we can really get or feel closer to children. So we have once again this effort that we have to let's say deploy with these children. Now there's another video number 3, taking into account another level of integration between different professionals involved in the care work. So in a way, we reiterated the need to create a team, a very clear word, which is what we usually use with our work with children and people accompanying them. So the need for the minor to be right at the center of a specific pathway. So thanks to the team, it is possible to overcome these difficulties. Okay, so video number 3. Thank you.
We must repair the damages resulting from adverse childhood experiences. The child should be placed at the center of a care process, where different professionals work in synergy. It is a matter of undertaking a path to repair damages that affect the child and its caregivers. The key actors in this framework are not only the affected parties, but also social workers, psychotherapists, educators, and judges. This path can be long and tiring. Sometimes it can present obstacles that appear insurmountable. However, the presence of different professionals able to understand and to support emotionally the victims relieves fatigue and gives the strength to continue. Only through this teamwork, the child will find the lost piece, demolishing the barriers built by the traumatic experiences suffered.
E l'ultimo di questi video che
The last video, the number 4, in this case there's a historical presentation mentioning the 4 principles, the 4 P's that have to guide the institutions and operators to create the right conditions to reduce damage, which is the exposure to the ACEs. The first P is prevention, then we have protection, then we have provisions, and then we have the participation of the minor in the decision concerning him or her after receiving the right information. You can also see other keywords: right, support, listening to the victim, prevention, protection, and integration that professionals have to ensure in an effort to help the persons traumatized. So video number 4.
Until the early 1900s, from a legal point of view, children and adolescents were considered as objects. They were people without rights, which were acquired only when they reached the full age. An adult, therefore, was exclusively obliged to manage and control the minor. It is only in the early 20s of the 1900s that a new phase begins, when children and adolescents progressively become holders of rights. A path of right extension that accelerated in 1989 thanks to the Convention on the Rights of the Child that introduced the 4 Ps. Prevention. What can be done to prevent adverse childhood experiences and how to establish a culture of prevention. Protection. The set of attitudes and protective measures to be put into practice in different areas of the child's life. Provision. The establishment of a system of facilities useful for ensuring the well-being of minors. Participation. the introduction of the right of information and consultation in decisions affecting the lives of children. In this framework, significant adults in the life of the child are parents, educators, service operators, judges, lawyers, doctors. They must communicate and collaborate in order to create a customized, integrated protection system, a protection system that guarantees the minor a network of rights, protection, prevention, listening, care, support, integration.
Bene, ok.
Okay, thank you so much. The floor goes now to Dante.
Grazie alla dottoressa Sassaro e
Thank you so much, Mrs. Saro. So the long morning, so the beginning of the afternoon actually, will be concluded by Dante. Dante Getzi is a psychologist, is a psychotherapist, and he comes from the La Strada Centro Tiama. Good afternoon. I have some slides I'd like to share with you, and I'd like to, well, take up the challenge you gave me. So on the ASE, I'd like to talk about the take-up and the treatment. Allow me to have a detour. So I won't be talking about multidisciplinarity, but I will be talking about this subject by highlighting different perspectives that, once again, we have to put together. A beautiful video, video number 3, the child falling into a well, then he is, helped, and then you can see all of the colors of the operators, integrating. But this is really very similar to what I'm going to say. Now, I will develop the topic of the pluralism, if you will, of the points of view, so different perspectives that has to do with multidisciplinarity, because every single point of view is based on a discipline, thoughts, and culture. So parents have a discipline and a culture together with children, which is what I'm going to say. So who are the players of the network? Now, by the way, I'm talking about the network. I mean, multidisciplinarity means having different, concomitant point of view, so as to generate positive aspects in the growth pathway of young people. You have psychologists, you have social workers, you have the neuropsychiatrists, again, other types of social workers, educators, and then the rehab operators. All of them are supposed to cooperate. When do they have to do this? Well, maybe, they have started, working together, and this is how they come across new cases. After 15, 20 or 30 years, we observe that sometimes the network doesn't work. There may be gaps, or in some cases connections are switched off. So apart from the social workers, we also have other operators from the, maybe the church, the gyms, you have the scouts, you also have, some, once again, sport clubs, basketball, volleyball, football, and so on and so forth. Now, these are, places where children are protected. They can also be observed. Yes, I know there are risks there as well, because people having bad intentions can be found, unfortunately, everywhere. So you send your child to school, and then he goes to the church, and there sometimes something horrible happens, or severe cases. And so once again, traumatic activations that may follow previous ones. Now, What about the school? The school is protective areas. I mean, we send our children to school. I am a grandfather, and now I see my grandchildren going to school. Next year, she will go to school. I saw the school, this morning very close to my home, and I said, next year she will be here. A protective place, a caring place, a place where, once again, teachers protect children. But, the school can work with us. They can have a protective role, but the school system is very selective when it comes to reporting. For example, I remember a recent report from a school. 10-year-old boy. They wanted to speak with his father because he got out of the window and then coming back from another window. So teachers called the dad, and the dad said, "Don't worry. He's got a wonderful balance. He won't fall." And then, of course, the school has to talk with the children's or the minors' court. So this is a very special case, of course. So they do report, but when there's a long situation with neglect, sometimes this doesn't happen. So once again, the school system offers educational growth, or the growth of skills. Sometimes they think this is superficial, this is banal, or maybe they look on the other side, so to say. So once again, this is maybe less shocking, but long term, this becomes a very big issue. There's neglect, so it takes maybe months or years to generate the traumas in children, and the school doesn't see everything. In some cases, teachers cannot see or understand how chronic that behavior is. So the family is in the network, of course, because children, they are born, within their families. So we have professionals, and then we have, leisure operators, sports, and then school. But once again, back to the family. Now, the family can be a player, or in some cases, they have a passive role. If I don't protect children enough, well, hopefully someone can do something. First of all, they should be telling me. Then I really, really have to be encouraged, heavily to do something. Then someone may also replace me in this kind of attitude. If something happens that doesn't really work well in the life of the child, many families, most of them are very worried, and they see what happened. For example, my child is 7, and then he's not able to control, the toilet times. Of course, I need to find help. Maybe, I think it's my fault, something like, what should I have done? This is the so-called repair area. Once again, I have to mention Mrs. Malacrea. This is something she wrote 30 years ago, and there's a beautiful article, which is a short article, but still of a high value. If the family is not an actor within the network we're talking about, within a cooperation or collaboration. So again, if the family, the family is something that cannot be replaced. Forms may change, but the real meaning doesn't change. This is where children grow. This is where they change themselves. And if the family is not doing something, you or someone has to do something. Let me share with you this diagram. You have the repair area on the left, so within the family. This is a list of family tasks. There are symptoms, which is what I said before, and many other symptoms. They admit that there's a problem. Parents ask for help. Professionals, for example, the general practitioner, the doctor, the psychologist, so they do the take-up of the family. Parents do collaborate, so the spontaneous context works well. So not all problems, but problems in general are faced and solved. So this is the repair area within the family, so the family is the main player. Now, protection area. So what is written in the first column on the left is not what happens on the right. So you can see symptoms. I mean, there's a bias, there's something that doesn't work. The problem denies. They say, no, this is tantrum, he or she is a liar. So the problem is somewhere else. It's not in my child, or maybe in the head or the character of that, child that may be really stubborn. So basically, the problem is denied. So the family doesn't ask for help. This is why I was talking about passive families or active families. In this case, the family is very passive. They don't ask for help. Maybe it would be great to do some motricity or psychological support. They do this twice, but then they stop. So maybe there's a psychologist close to the school. Well, sometimes this is done, but quite often this is not done. The proposal is rejected. The parents do not collaborate. So what is required is a mandatory action. Mrs. Malacrea, I mean me, myself, and many other specialists we have here in Milan, which is now a national model. Now, when it comes to reporting a case to the court as the first clinical step, now the minors course may tell parents, you are not working, you have to be controlled. These parents can do something, otherwise they don't do anything. So the fact of being mandatory, this is the start of a family's recovery action. So in this case, I mean, there's trouble, and all of this behavior becomes chronic in case of no intervention. So the family has a natural point of view. The family should be caring, should be protecting, they should show, affection. Or on the other side, we have a family that can be, encouraged and even partly replaced. Because the idea we have here is how to assess if the family can be recovered, if you will. This is what we've seen. This model does work. I mean, if you offer some encouragement to the family, in many cases there's plenty of, let's say, signs of recovery. As for the networks, players, the so-called village. The village is the local community, if you will, the neighborhood, or maybe even the street you live in. As someone said before, there's we. We as fundamental, as Mrs. Angone said, and this is included into our mindset. There's a we or an us. So what about people around these children? I mean, the people who are not parents. What are they doing? Are they minding their own business? Are they showing indifference, or are they there? Are they taking part? Well, my point of view is that children have to be protected by all of us, the entire village, so to say, so the entire community. Let me mention, let's say a very negative but also a positive case. There was a child, 8-year-old. This child name was, let's say, Pietro, and then the father works all the time. And then the mother has health issues, so she has to leave. So at the end, all the children said, well, so people are helping the child, before the intervention of social worker. So this child, is hosted by these families for 3 months. This is what you do, right? This is what we have to do. Why not? I also remember a very bad situation that made the headlines. And I also had to go to a TV program to talk about this years ago. There's a child in a small village close to Naples, and then he climbs the stairs. This is something that dates back so many years ago. And then he takes money, and then he goes to an old man. Everyone knows what he does. So he visits someone that takes advantage of the child. Everyone knows that they don't do anything. He's not my child. What are you saying? That child was killed and burned in Cicciano. It's a small village around in the outskirts of Naples. That man was, judged, and then he died right away. Now, that village, Sotoke, was indifference. There was neglect. Everyone knew what the child was doing. This is a big mistake. Now, look at the society in which we are. Maybe there's a strong individualism, so we mind our own business. But wait a second, children are everyone's children. And this is something we cannot forget, okay? Children belong to us all. So we protect our children and our grandchildren, so we don't have to mind others' business. But yes, a little bit, when you really have to, you have to do this.
Then there's something else I'd like to add, focusing on children as players, as the main actors in this village of network of detection and takeover and protection. We have to consider them as active players. They're not passive. Both Professor Ciassaro and Professor Malacrea spoke of them as actors. They have to be part of this whole situation. What does this mean? It means that we have to be with the children, with the teachers, with the parents and the other educators. We have to work with them. We have to inform them, and then we have to ask for intervention. In Italy, we're lacking sexual education in schools, and this is something that cries for revenge. In families where this should occur, theoretically and in practice, this should be supported. I am aware of families who have kids of 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 years old, and they do not speak of sexuality. And there were some schools where there was a sexual education class, and the parents asked this course to be abandoned and interrupted. When my kid was in 8th grade, there was no cell phone at the time. He was looking up male asses, and he was looking it up, and then they understood that he was curious about it, but the situation was not under control. So kids have to be informed. Sexual education has to be taught. Kids should know that there are pedophiles. So, oh no, we can't speak of these things to a kid who's 6 years old. They're going to be scared. No, they're not going to be scared. They need to know. They need to know that there are some adults who touch children negatively. Some touch them positively and some negatively. And Professor Pillai has done a lot of work in this sense. If you are washed and treated, that's a positive touching. Then there's also negative touching, someone who is looking for pleasure by touching other people, by fondling. So you have to explain what this fondling is. It's BS that children get scared. Children are far ahead than we are. They think about it. They're foresighted. They ask questions. Sometimes they don't ask questions because they see that we are embarrassed and we keep silent. So if we explain, and they say, if you are a subject of A, B, and C, you are not going to be scolded. You will be listened at. There's the piano teacher, for example, and this is a case that I saw last week, who touched me and fondled. Oh, but isn't it you, the kid, who is imagining it? No, you cannot say that. You listen to him profusely and continue to listen. We have to teach our children to ask for help, and we don't do it enough. And we have to teach this at school, in the family, in all of the places where education and training and sports takes place, where risks can occur. There are many people who love children, but there are people who hurt children. By closing, I would also like to focus on another topic. As adult society, we're losers in this topic, especially nowadays. Media and social media. Kids from 10 years of age, even younger, own a cell phone, except for certain rare exceptions or occasions. When my kids, when I was small, I did not have a TV set, and then even when I was a parent, my kids did not watch television, and then it was gifted to us. In many situations nowadays, teenagers just keep their cell phone on and on, even at night. And so I asked my grandson and even my son long debates, familiar family dynamics and discussions. Well, we have to be connected, we have to be online, or else it's a shame. What do you mean it's a shame? So as adults now, we are accepting this inability of distinguishing themselves. And so as families, we abdicate to our role. Not only families, but even the school, not only the school, so family first and then the school. Well, at school, they should explain about tools, so books, thoughts, words, drawing, painting, and then making sculptures. And then they don't speak of media. So, yes, you leave the cell phone out of the classroom, but not in all classrooms. In all classrooms, this is done. After a couple of hours that they've spent in the class at school, we have seen this advancement of social media, and we're powerless. We should start thinking about it and getting concerned about it. Otherwise, it's going to be a great danger. Thank you very much for your attention. Very well, with the final presentation by Dr. Ghezzi, we close our conference. I hope it was useful. We hope we have conveyed to you even the soul of the project, and hope to see you soon for the next conference on the project that will be held here at the Università Bicocca. Thank you.